How important is a good breakfast?
Yeah, actually quite important, I would say. Um, yeah, I noticed that if I don't have a decent cooked breakfast by about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I'm dipping. I always kind of dip by that point anyway. But if I've not taken care of myself, then I really dip by that point in time. Yeah.
At what point in your life did you notice there was a connection between keeping yourself healthy and creativity?
I've always been aware of it, but I haven't always followed it. Basically, still like it's a sort of guilt thing. You're like, I really should be doing this. I really should be doing that, but most of the time I don't do it. I do always eat a good breakfast though, whether I get up early or get up late. Still to eat, you know, it can be breakfast time at 1 in the afternoon or 10. Never really get up until about 10:30 ever.
But stay up late.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a night owl. I'm just kind of I feel like after about 7 or 8 o'clock, I get a kind of weird focus and calm, and I tend to get most of my work or most of my sort of creative work done. Then I can do sort of. No, that's not true. I can work all day, but just certainly on my own stuff, I tend to focus a bit better at night. Yeah.
How do you kind of rationalize that? Is the part of your brain that you use for production the part that you use for writing? Does it feel quite different creatively for you?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, really, honestly, the production stuff. I was talking to some bands about this the other day. It really depends on the project. Like some projects it will almost be like I'm a fifth member of the band or whatever. Other projects it will be more like I'm a basically engineering it and helping them sort through takes. So it's a really sort of wide swing, and it just really depends on what I think and what the band. Well, it just depends on where the artist wants to go really, and where I think I can fit in and help, kind of thing. Yeah.
Is a messy or clean workspace better for you creatively?
Clean. My workspace is messy right now, but clean is absolutely. I have like old COVID tests on my mixing desk, like lined up. I don't know why. They've just been there for a few months now. But no, like sometimes actually, I used to do this all the time when I was starting a mix. I would tidy the room first. Uh, yeah, I don't know, it just does something for me. Like clears your brain. Whereas if you're sitting at the desk or whatever and it's a mess, you're like, I should really deal with that. And then you know that you're not dealing with it, and you feel bad about not dealing with it, and then that distracts you from the mix. So yeah, I'd just like to keep it clean. As far even on sessions, man, like in the studio, like I'll try and a thing that I do a lot now is I will show up even though I tend to sleep in late. I'll just start the sessions later. I'll still show up early to the studio and set everything up so that when the band roll in, it's like everything's ready to go and they can be the star. Because I mean, from my own experience being in the studio, it's like it's not cool if you're an artist or you're going to do vocals and you turn up and everything's a fucking mess and like the engineer's like, oh yeah, I'll set up, and you're sitting there ready to go for your vocal take or whatever, and it's like they're still plugging shit in and trying to sound check stuff, and because there's always a lot of the time with studios there'll be a bit of troubleshooting as well. There'll be some cable that's went, or and there's a bit of back and forth with what mic you're going to use, and you know so on and so forth. So it's just good to get early and set up, and I tend to have better sessions mentally for myself if I show up early and make sure everything's tidy. Yeah.
What other routines or rituals do you have that feel essential to your creativity and your process in a day?
Uh, they've gotten pretty weird lately. No, actually, no, they've actually not gotten weird. They've just gotten nice. I've just kind of thought a lot about creating an atmosphere for performers. Because when you get to a certain level or whatever, where you're working with a certain level of band that maybe are more experienced in the studio, or certainly just uh, have a strong vision of what it is they want, you need to get on board with what that vision is and then try and create the right atmosphere for them. And a lot of the time, I mean, my thing is I'm starting to get a bit of a reputation now for like, you can tell I've been in the studio because there's always loads of flowers everywhere. Like someone stopped me in the street the other day and he was like, "Oh, you were in the Green Door recently, weren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And he was like, "Because there was loads of fucking flowers everywhere." I don't know, man. I I'll build a little den for the singer, like a little, because that's what I used to do when I was doing my own records. I'd have this little den, and there would be stuff in it and like flowers and candles and a loaded air pistol. When I was doing the first album, which was really weird, but I enjoyed that. Yeah, I mean, I'll just make the studio really nice, and sometimes I'll do a little incense cleanse of the space just before the session starts if I feel that the vibe is bad in the room, which is maybe nuts, but I like it, and the band's 100% of the time appreciate it. You know, because again, it's the same thing. It's setting that atmosphere, and it's like it's making someone feel like they are talented. Because obviously they are. You know, if I'm working with them, then they're talented. There's obviously some kind of merit in what they're doing, and they deserve to be treated as such. And I feel that that helps them get in the right headspace, especially to do vocals. Because I really think vocals is, if you're a competent enough singer, you know, I feel like a good singer that has a vision and knows what they want, then it's not necessarily about getting a perfect take in a technical sense. It's about getting the take that conveys the emotion of the song, you know, in the best way possible. And a lot of that, I would say, is mindset. You need to be in the right headspace to do that. You need to be free of other concerns, and having a studio that's set up and looks nice and has effort put into it, obviously, because they are the talent, they're the star. They show up and they feel good about it, and they more often than not tend to get the take, you know.
Speaking of mindset, what would make you feel like you had to reset your mindset during the day? And how would you go about doing that?
If the studio was a mess, actually, no, I've got a really good story. I was doing an album a few months ago with a band called Perspex from Leeds and York, and I think that Michael Cable is one of the best songwriters, if not the best songwriter that I've ever met, like hands down. Like I would, there were several times on the album session where I turned around to him and said, "Michael, you are a rock star and a poet. You just are." And he's like, "Oh, shut up." You know, he's like kind of getting embarrassed about it. But he is, man. Like, you could like, I'd happily sit and read his lyrics kind of thing, and like, you know, I'd happily read a book of his stuff. You know, you don't even need the song. It just adds to it. You know, it's like it's kind of like if the Kinks or the Soft Boys were fronted by John Cooper Clarke. Kind of. There's much more to it than that, but I feel he really nails how it feels to live in the UK right now more than other people. That I can't think of anyone else that's doing it in a way that isn't some kind of super arty vague way. He's really spelling it out for you, but in a way that's compelling. Anyway, that's not really what you asked me at all. What you asked me was if I had to reset my mood in the studio, what would I do? So yeah, so the point is, during that Perspex session, we were I think it was maybe the third day, we were still doing the full band stuff, and we were in the Green Door doing the full record to the 16-track tape machine. So the band were pretty much like 80 to 90% of the record was live in the room. So they were doing this take, and I chanced my arm, right, and I shouldn't have done this. I put a Fender Twin amplifier outside of the studio in the corridor, and I thought, well, it's like maybe 5 o'clock now, so all the like businesses in the hidden lane will be shut, and the landlord will have left, you know, on his merry way. And he hadn't left, and at the end of the take, thankfully at the end of the take, the bass player told me after the take that he could feel him pushing he was like, I could feel someone like pushing the door when I was playing, and I thought, nah, I'll just finish the take, so I'll just lean into it, finish the take, and the guy bursts in and goes, no one can hear themselves think, you know, the whole lane is filled with noise, and he said this, and it's fucking so funny, because we got all this on tape, and it's going to be on the album, and he's like, Belle and Sebastian can't hear themselves rehearse, and I was just in the control, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, stopped the tape, stood up, and there's this guy, the landlord, who's quite a character, you know, nice enough guy, but doesn't doesn't take kindly to people screwing up his lane. And yeah, he went nuts, and it was just weird. I think we all just felt a bit rattled. We're like, oh, that's this horrible angry man, like literally burst into the live room as we were playing to give us all a telling off, like we were like schoolboys, you know. And they're rock stars and poets. They're not schoolboys, so we had to reset the mood. So I can't remember what we did. I think we had a good laugh about it because we did get it on tape, and we're like, that's because also that take was the take. That was the best take they did of that song, and that's the one that's on the album. And there is a bit of that at the end that we've left in. It's on the final mix. It's been sent to be mastered. That landlord has been immortalised. I don't know whether to give him a copy of the album or not.
Definitely.
I know, but I honestly don't. I don't know if he's like. I don't know if he's the kind of guy that would find that funny. I'm not sure. I'll need to ask Ronan and Sam. They know more. They've had more run-ins with him than I have. So I've only been working from there for a couple of years. So yeah, I'll need to speak to them about it. But yeah, we had to reset the mood then. I can't remember how we did it. It did rattle us. We thought it was funny, but we were also a bit like, oh, that's kind of fucked up. I'm sure we probably just went for a pint, had some dinner, and then came back an hour or two later and got back on it. Yeah.
What do you think about most in the day that isn't music?
Just lots of things. I'm very much into the history of early man right now. It's interesting to me, and history of Native Americans. That's interesting to me. And I was I've kind of got to this point now where I'm like, there's not really anything else to do. And this sounds nuts, but yeah, I just kind of got to that point in my life where it's like I like what I'm doing. I'm kind of sort of trying to be or I am pretty much fully immersed in it, and I like that because I feel that it's a sort of worthy activity to sort of do with your time while you're alive, to try and follow something that you're passionate about, and I'm very lucky to be able to do that. So I'm just going for it, basically.